Attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. His truth goes marching on, and this will be littered with it. As Michigan has stated this week, they will prohibit the open carrying of firearms at polling stations, clerks' offices and other places where absentee ballots are tabulated to prevent voter intimidation, according to state officials on Friday. I guess that is where a designated area for Operation Blackout False Flags then. Pennsylvania has rejected over 370,000 applications for mail-in ballots, most of which were duplicate requests, according to a report by the ProPublica and Philadelphia Inquiry. About 90% of the denied application requests were duplicates, and 1 out of every 5 requests has been rejected. To the checkout girl in Walmart, have you found out yet which state Pennsylvania's in? Then we have Caroline Giuliani, the daughter of President Donald Trump's personal attorney and New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, is urging Americans to end this nightmare by voting for Democrat nominee Joe Biden and his running mate or man or whatever, Kamala Harris. Well, she needs to shut her pie hole and look closer to home as part of who the problem is. Think 9/11, Caroline. Wall Street's top matchmakers for mega deals sees a wave of corporate takeovers coming, with a worrying implication for the workforce and a jump in job losses. You're only 16 months behind our show, Wall Street. We warned of this in June 2019. As some decide they have had enough of the presidents George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln and Franklin Roosevelt are among the historical figures whose names are no longer considered honourable enough to adorn public schools in San Francisco. So the city's board is looking to rename as many as 44 of the 125 public schools in its districts, after a panel of community members appointed to study the issue found their namesakes to be problematic by today's standards of woke conduct. Oh my. A new name that goes on their labels. As a new report reveals, the suspension of New York staff writer and CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, who was born in and born to, claims the legal pundit was masturbating during a Zoom call with colleagues. He exposed himself to members of the New Yorker and WYNC radio staff during a Zoom call last week, it was revealed. From jackass to jack off, it seems. As fact checkers reaches new disturbing heights of crass childlike stupidity, are people really getting what that whole exercise is? It is telling us all we are too stupid to think for ourselves, and please allow them to think for us, and we just copy and repeat them. All very school and church-like, that, isn't it? But then, if millions of people act stupid and childlike by wearing masks, that states on the box is not a deterrent for COVID or any other infections. But let's ignore that, shall we? We, the bot people, are enjoying the comforts of our government looking after us, just like Mummy and Daddy did. We love our Milgram experiment, and we bow to authority and fact checkers like the children we are. Is it just the fact that really too many adults lack love and prefer the mum and dad variety of care, which is then replaced by the government, and subsequently the world becomes a giant nursery for adults with childlike thinking, too lazy or too stupid to think for themselves? Now, there are many people who can think for themselves, and the rest have shown themselves to be computer-like entities, unable to do anything unless someone presses their keyboard and they follow the instructions. They allow them to go ogle at you. They learn the alphabet from the agencies, call you Microsoft when actually it's Macrosoft in the head. And because you are Microsoft, you will be microchipped. And they just want you to do what the doctor has said and have an apple a day with their new partner for life, an Android. Fact Checker is their new Microsoft in the head messenger, while MK Ultra twitters in their head, whilst they call you Tube. A tube is a TV, and they return to the alphabets of ABC, all waiting to receive stimulus from the Trump card. Trump will look after us as Uncle Samsung for us. Our food is disappearing, yet these people wait for their news feed. CNN, the children's news network, all brought to you by the CIA, children imitating adults. They learn of the deep state, not the government deep state, but a deep state of amnesia, of how wonderful it is that Wall Street and us, or US, which is us as in them, are doing marvellously well, and don't worry about losing your businesses, savings, lifestyles, freedom and speech. Because Mummy Lie Ops, the non-Speaker of the House, is biding her time and will save you from the House of Orange Man. White hair, yellow hair, no one notices. As for your entrainment, not entertainment, Trump now does Easter festivals in the autumn or the fall. The fall of man for technology. They carry on with their hashtags. Hash means to chop into pieces, and then they tag you. The great divide and conquer program the bots love to play with. They go back to the computer to be plugged into a maritime seaport, where they have a monitor to go ogle them some more, or with a CAM, which stands for Children Are Monitored. Whilst they stay silent like a mouse, because they love the comfort of being trapped by a net, and into the net they go. All used like batteries, which is why they call it Duracell. Dura means the membrane surrounding the brain and the spinal cord, and cell is a prison, which means your brain is imprisoned and they are plugged into the back of the neck, just like several movies like The Matrix shows you. Let's collect some apps, which are applications and means the bringing of something to bear on something else. And that something else is us. The organic, self-thinking populace, while they play continuum-style technology games. Light web, dark web. It's still a web of the spider. But no worries, one search on the spider web will bring up your obsession and you will find your new master via cat-holicism. But don't worry, again, your new parent, the motherboard, will protect you whilst calling you USB. You stupid bastards. ET phone home? No earthlings phone home, as you're on a different world currently. Think and act different, which I said in our very first show, has far more meaning now than it did then, doesn't it? Right, fairly powerful opening. Hope you all got that. But it won't be the last this evening. But first we're going to go into social media issues in the news this week. And introduced in the House this week, or recently anyway, this resolution condemns QAnon and rejects the conspiracy theories it promotes. And the resolution condemns all other groups and ideologies that contribute to the spread of unfounded conspiracy theories and encourage Americans to destroy property and attack law enforcement officers. What a load of crap that is. The resolution encourages federal law enforcement and homeland security agencies to continue to strengthen their focus on preventing violence, just like they did in Portland. No, they didn't. Oh, well, that must be a conspiracy theorist then. Threats, harassment and other criminal activity by extremists motivated by fringe political conspiracy theories. I guess the CIA wrote this, given it keeps mentioning conspiracy theories. And finally, the resolution encourages the misnomer called the intelligence community to uncover any foreign support, assistance or online amplification QAnon receives, as well as any QAnon affiliations, coordination and contacts with foreign extremist organisations or groups espousing violence. Oh my. And this is what your politicians are doing instead of looking after the people in the country. Where were the bills for investigations of condemning of Antifa or Black Lives Matter? It's funny they can spend time to push this bill through whilst ignoring the people's stimulus bill or the tax reform bill or the sovereignty bill or the FEMA replacement relief bill. But there you go. The US government has filed charges against GoOgle, accusing the company of abusing its dominance to preserve a monopoly over internet searches and online advertising. Now, the lawsuit marks the biggest challenge brought by US regulators against a major tech company in years, and it follows more than a year of investigation and comes as the biggest tech firms face intense scrutiny of their practices at home and abroad. Now, GoOgle called the case deeply flawed, really. And the company has maintained that its sector remains intensely competitive and that its practices put customers first. Oh, they don't half lie, don't they? People use GoOgle because they chose to, not because they're forced to or because they can't find alternatives. Yeah, right. It's a bit like people chose to use Microsoft. They had no option. And the charges filed in federal court were brought by the US Department of Justice and 11 other states. The lawsuit focuses on the billions of dollars GoOgle pays each year to ensure its search engine is installed as the default option on browsers and devices such as mobile phones. Now, officials said those deals have helped secure GoOgle's place as the gatekeeper to the internet, owning or controlling the channels for about 80% of search inquiries in the US. GoOgle has thus foreclosed competition for internet search, according to the lawsuit, and general search engine competitors are denied vital distribution, scale and product recognition, ensuring they have no real chance to challenge Go Ogle. Better late than ever, I suppose, but I'm wondering, is this a faction lawsuit? But wouldn't it be a good idea if the fines went to the TPC, or better still, food banks? There's another solution for you, Trump, whilst you're busy changing hair colour. During a recent USA congressional hearing, Facebook's former director of monetization said that Facebook took a page from Big Tobacco's playbook, working to make Facebook as addictive as cigarettes. And he admitted that Facebook built algorithms that have facilitated the spread of misinformation, encouraged divisive rhetoric, and laid the groundwork for a mental crisis. And now he worries that Facebook is pushing us to the brink of a civil war. Facebook employs psychologists and data scientists to analyse and manipulate our emotions and purchase decisions. Facebook deliberately serves us polarising content that outrages us. Why? Because that drives higher engagement and more ad revenue. This high-tech brainwashing, he said, is like something straight out of Black Mirror, and suggested it's time for MeWe, social media done right, no targeting, no algorithms that boost inflammatory content, no ads, no manipulation of our minds and news feeds, and no BS. Nice to see some of you have crossed over into MeWe. One day they will all have to, because they will shut us down. In August of 2019, we had a new illness was reported. No, not COVID this time. In America, which was named vape lung, or E-Valley. E-cigarettes vaping associated lung injury. And the E-Valley and other respiratory viruses share similar symptoms, including shortness of breath, night sweats, low oxygen levels, and hazy spots on a lung X-ray. Quoting experts who mentioned the difficulty to tease apart a bad flu case and a vaping case. That has wider implications, that last part. The difficulty to tease apart a bad flu case and a vaping case. A bit like COVID then. Now, the illness was reported as a US-specific phenomenon that began in Illinois and Wisconsin in April 2019, and the first death from vaping-related illness was reported on August the 23rd in Illinois. Patients, mostly otherwise healthy and in their late teens and 20s, are showing up with severe shortness of breath, often after suffering for several days with vomiting, fever and fatigue. Some have wound up in the intensive care unit or on a ventilator for weeks. Treatment has been complicated by patients' lack of knowledge and sometimes outright denial about the actual substances they might have used or inhaled. It's sharply increasing in August 2019 and peaked in September. And it was blamed on illicit vaping products, especially those containing cannabis. As of October the 15th, 2019, the CDC had reported on 1,358 sufferers of E-Valley, of whom about 2/3 were male. The median age was 24, and although the median age of fatality was around 50 years of age. Now, I warned about this when it first came out. It all came out far too quickly and was far too heavily promoted as well. That rarely happens with something that is beneficial. And so this is now revealing its issue. I guess they, like the vaccine manufacturers, will have an indemnity, no doubt. Well, if you're going to smoke natural tobacco and you will be fine. It is a high vibrational plant, unlike the burning of marijuana, which is a low vibrational plant and the worst form of hemp, etc., that plant. Trials of COVID-19 vaccine being developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University will continue despite following a review into the death of a volunteer in Brazil. Brazil's health authority has given no details about the death, no surprise, citing confidentiality protocols. That's a bit like the CIA and NSA citing national security. Exactly the same. And Oxford University said a careful assessment had revealed no safety concerns. The BBC understands that the volunteer did not receive the vaccine. Yeah, right. Only around half the volunteers in the trial are given the actual Oxford University COVID-19 vaccine. The second group are being given an existing licensed vaccine for meningitis. Really? Neither the participants nor their families know which vaccine they are being given, and this enables the researchers to compare the results for the two groups in order to measure whether the vaccine is effective. Absolutely scandalous. Low-income people being bribed into being lab rats. That's what's going on here. Being set up into the great unknown and risking their lives for less than $100 is just stupid, if you ask me. No one turns up for the trials, none of this BS is getting out. I know many people are struggling, but surely you value your life more than 50 quid or less than $100. US President Donald Trump has said Sudan will come off a list of state sponsors of terror if it now pays compensation of $335 million. Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok responded by saying the funds have been transferred, but there was no immediate US confirmation. Good luck with that, mate. And Sudan has been listed since 1993, when Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden lived there as a guest of the government. And the compensation relates to Al-Qaeda's 1998 bombing of US embassies in Africa. Really? I don't think it was Sudan. Children imitating adults, more likely. Now, the attacks in Tanzania and Kenya killed more than 220 people, and the compensation money is to be paid to US terror victims and families, Mr. Trump said. But if the attacks were in Tanzania and Kenya, most of them won't be American, Mr. Trump. But where is really this $335 million being paid to? You know, Sudan is a country racked in poverty and debt. Why would you increase that strife, Mr. Trump? For what? Because Sudan denies Israel? Really? But if Sudan has to pay for having bin Laden as a guest, are you going to charge the McCain family for being engaged with terrorists, or Donald Rumsfeld for meeting and shaking hands with Osama bin Laden in hospital? maybe not. And here's what we warned about in Clowns in Panic. Politicians are going to be faced with the uncomfortable reality that you're going to have more big business doing better and that there's going to be more losses of jobs along the way, according to Goldman Sachs Group President John Waldron in a conference on Friday. You're going to see a fairly sizable amount of large cap mergers and acquisitions coming with stronger, healthier companies being the acquirer and taking advantage of weakness in their industry or elsewhere. Big companies outside the most hard-hit industries can tap financing at extraordinarily low rates, adopted by central banks to prop up the economy during the pandemic. No, it's just propping up them. And the market is giving them the license to do mergers and acquisitions, encouraging more consolidation. Or, as they put on the Bitcoin, decentralization into a smaller pot. Now, Goldman Sachs, no surprise, has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of this year's turmoil, with its core Wall Street trading and deal-making operations facing a surge in demand from investors and corporations looking to reposition themselves or raise capital. At Goldman and its peers, divisions providing those services have seen revenue and profitability surge to the highest levels in years. Rich get richer and the poor get poorer. These are snake oil lenders and companies, and it's just harvest, harvest and harvest, and that's all they know. Well, like I said, this confirms again what we warned of in the Clowns in Panic show, large core pirate takeovers by the Billionaires Club. And everything below them will cease to exist. Then comes our death knell, unless we stop it, called Universal Basic Income, or UBI, or you be an idiot is the real term. Meanwhile, as they all prop up their coffers and bank accounts with loads of zeros, the country's collapsing in and of itself. The US budget deficit hit a record $3.132 trillion during the fiscal 2020 year, which ends at the end of September. More than triple the 2019 shortfall as a result of massive coronavirus rescue spending, which is pure BS, according to the US Treasury said on Friday. The deficit more than doubled the previous record of $1.416 trillion in 2009, when the United States was battling a financial crisis. Now, at the start of the 2020 fiscal year, which ended on September the 30th, the US government had been forecast to rack up a $1 trillion deficit before the lockdowns began in March. In September, the year's final month, the US budget deficit was $1.25 billion, compared with an $83 billion surplus in September 2019, the Treasury said. Receipts for the full fiscal year totaled $3.42 trillion, a decrease of $43 billion, or 1% from 2019. Fiscal 2020 outlays jumped $2.105 trillion from 2019 and to a total of $6.55 trillion. $6.5 trillion has been spent out by the US government this year, and what have we the people got for it? $6.5 trillion. with the increase, they said, made up almost entirely from increased healthcare and unemployment compensation costs. What a load of bollocks that is. What about all the money that went to prop up the Fed? Who gave that, I might add? And the cost of small businesses, they didn't do nothing for small business. They've all gone bust. And corporate rescue programs, yeah, all the big conglomerates, approved by the board members sitting Congress people. But there's no mention in that report of the bailout of the Fed, is there? Or the bailout of the large-end clown companies, making out that they spent it all on the people is a barefaced lie. Whilst the bulk of American people tolerate this crap, the theatre and the rape of the people's money will go on. And we have to stop it. This is a report from Thailand, from one of our members. You know, sometimes you get reports from around the world, and sometimes I can fit it into the show. And this is what got said. The dictator in Thailand not only extended the state of emergency, but increased it to severe, and things are going downhill fast here. His expression in a press conference was cocky, smug, and says he's not resigning. That gave him the authority to try and disperse the protests using strong water cannons. Protesters were out last night in heavy rain, I mean heavy rain, to defy the ban on gatherings, but they had to change location to Siam Paragon as it hadn't stopped raining. He is now threatening a curfew. The army dictator is cozying up with China. On the 10th of August, that will be remembered as either a key date in Thailand's transition to democracy or as a precursor to yet another coup carried out by a military pledging itself to the defence of the monarchy. On that date, a representative of a group of students at a protest held at Thammasat University publicly made a unique set of demands. Strip the monarchy of legal immunity, revoke the lèse-majesté law, and pardon all those jailed for the crime. Clearly define which assets are held privately by the king, reduce tax money supporting the institution, abolish all royal offices, open all money given to royal charities to public scrutiny, forbid the monarch from expressing political opinions, cut all royalist propaganda, investigate the disappearances and murders of critics of the monarchy, and outlaw royal consent to coup. In democratic countries which have monarchies, most of these demands are rather commonplace, but not in Thailand. And it was a singular event given the draconian lèse-majesté law. At the same time, the demands were very much saying out loud what many Thais have been thinking privately for a long time. Thanks for that update. And now we go to Iran. Where are we? Iran's foreign ministry has declared the victory of multilateralism, peace and security as the UN's conventional arms embargo effectively expired on October the 18th, despite Washington's pressure to reimpose sanctions. As of today, all restrictions on the transfer of arms, related activities and financial services to and from the Islamic Republic of Iran, and all prohibitions regarding the entry or transit through territories of the United Nations member states, previously imposed on a number of Iranian citizens and military officials, are automatically terminated. And this was according to Iran's foreign ministry, said in a statement at midnight local time, October the 18th. Now, according to the foreign minister, Javad Zarif, stated it is a momentous day for the international community, which, in defiance of malign US efforts, has protected UNSC Resolution 2231 and JCPOA. And he said today's normalization of Iran's defense cooperation with the world is a win for the cause of multilateralism and peace and security in our region. Good stuff. Cue false flag in the Middle East and blame it on Iran. No doubt carried out by the fake country. Well, it's right on cue. Just 3 days later, US national security officials have reported Iran was responsible for sending threatening emails to Democratic voters. You can't make this shit up. You know, it's childlike. Just because they didn't get their own way. Now, the said emails appeared to come from a far-right, labels again, pro-Trump group and were meant to incite unrest. Ooh. And what were Antifa and BLM doing? Or did that just not happen? National Intelligence Director John Ratcliffe said, really. And he also said US officials have found Iran and Russia, the great boogeyman, have obtained some voter registration information. Oh dear. And the announcement comes 13 days before the presidential election. Mr. Ratcliffe said Iran's spoof emails, which were sent by Langley, claimed to be sent by the Proud Boys in order to intimidate voters, incite unrest and damage President Trump. And yet the mainstream media has incited unrest, intimidated voters, promoted racism, sexism and divisive comments and caused untold damage to the people all year. Will the US national security cite them also? Hello, McFly? Now, is there any collusion, Russian or otherwise? Absolutely. Because the national security group known as Five Eyes, which turned into Global Eyes, colludes with everyone. They are all in it together with boogeymen countries, terrorist countries, and the axis of evil labelled countries. And when will the people realise this is all one giant hoax? Right, where are we next? This whole next section is to do with Trump. And before we get into the fun and games. But the report came out this week that the Trump administration has not spent $9 billion in funding for the COVID-19 testing because of the opposition from a person known as Scott Atlas, who is an advisor on the White House Coronavirus Task Force. And they proclaimed that Atlas is not an infectious disease expert. I thought he was a map book, but never mind. And has emerged as an influential and controversial, advisor on the task force by promoting ideas in line with Trump's approach to the pandemic. And we're demanding that the Fed releases these dollars according to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who said that on Sunday, urging the Trump administration to commit to a robust testing and tracing program. But perhaps they can test and trace whether they've got any brain cells first. That would be a useful way to spend that $9 billion, in my opinion. But those are all mainstream media statements. But let's fact check it, shall we? Atlas is not an infectious disease expert. Now, Mr. Atlas is an American neuroradiologist, professor, commentator, and healthcare policy advisor. He is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and he's also written 4 books on healthcare policy, reforming America's healthcare system. But that is declared as a non-expert. And then we have Bill Gates, business magnate, software developer and philanthropist. Mentions of medical expert? None. He is a computer tech wizard who can't cure viruses on his own computer system, and yet he is highly regarded and mentoring as a medical expert, infectious disease or otherwise. Well, testing the public has cost lots of money. That's made snake oil people like Kushner lots of money also. And yet these tests have been found to reveal 90% are false positives. We the people find this type of information is not only bullshit, but it is also misleading the public and goes against our community standards. This next piece was part of a broadcast in the past week and a follow-up news piece where it says, by now you have probably heard of QAnon, a broad, baffling conspiracy theory that centers on the idea that there exists an international cult reaching the world of celebrity and politics that engages in child sex trafficking. Really? What about Epstein? Oh, let's forget about that. He committed suicide by flying to live in Israel. There you go. It roams widely, they said, at times looping in theories about John F. Kennedy Jr., whose supporters allege is still alive, or celebrities need to consume a chemical extracted from human blood. Actually, it's from the glands. All of this orbits around a mysterious figure identified as Q, who releases cryptic notes from which adherents extract their own life-sustaining meaning. It's a lot, so much that you're probably familiar with it in only a fairly broad sense. But again, you're probably familiar with it to some extent and probably have an opinion on the extent to which the most powerful person in the United States should entertain it as legitimate. So you can see where they're going. If your opinion is that President Trump should break with his past practice and condemn the theory as both ludicrous and dangerous, a position held by the FBI, we have some bad news. And during a sharp exchange with NBC's News' Savannah Guthrie during a town hall event on Thursday, Trump was peppered with a number of his more inscrutable and contentious claims. One was his refusal to advocate for wearing masks to combat the coronavirus pandemic, which led him to make false claims about the purported risks of wearing one. He was again pressed to reject white supremacy, prompting him to pivot or try to pivot to complaints about left-wing activists like Antifa, who are a loose-knit group that has at times engaged in violence. Pro-pagan da at its finest. Why are they holding up the FBI as the bastions of truth when clearly the same group were found wanting on the Russian collusion, the Hillary emails, and many other discrepancies in their work. False claims of purported risks of wearing a mask. Yet why is there a warning on the side of the masks box that states, "This product is an ear loop mask. This product is not a respirator and will not provide any protection against COVID-19 or other viruses or contaminants." Oops. Wearing a loop mask does not reduce the risk of contracting any disease or infection. So why haven't they banned the manufacturer for misleading information then? Yes, I know. Common sense again. It's an epidemic. In this show anyway. And so there you have it. The manufacturer of the masks tells you they don't work against viruses or infections. Antifa, they describe them as a loose-knit group that has at times engaged in violence. Yes, like burning whole towns, shopping centres and up and down the northwest coast of America. These people are not only stupid, but certifiable. But this is the exchange between Guthrie and Trump, which I thought would be useful because it says a lot. Guthrie said, "Let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile. It's not a theory. And that you are the saviour of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and disavow QAnon in its entirety?" Trump, "I know nothing about QAnon." Oops. Guthrie, "I just told you." Trump, "You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it," he said. "I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it hard, but I know nothing about it. If you'd like me to," and he was interrupted. And Guthrie said, "They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep state." Trump, "Study the subject. I tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left. And I know how violent they are and how vicious they are. And I know that they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans." And the report goes on that 5 years into Trump's political career, it's rare to find any of his comments terribly shocking. This response, the reporter said, is shocking. Trump expresses ignorance about the bounds of the QAnon theory, that the President of the United States should have said that he's unfamiliar with a bizarre theory that has tens or hundreds of thousands of adherents, that has been described as dangerous by federal law enforcement. Of course it is, because they're involved in the cover-up is why. And that centres on his administration suggests either that he is stunningly uninformed or simply not telling the truth. And Guthrie's summary of the theory is fair and common. It's impossible to think Trump's never been presented with it before. That he then isolates a central tenet, that the group is fighting pedophilia, suggests that he is quite familiar with it. QAnon followers try to leverage legitimate efforts to combat human trafficking to increase the reach of their theory. They are mucking up sincere efforts centered on the issue to introduce wild accusations and increase their exposure. QAnon fights pedophilia in the same sense that an Instagram influencer pretending to help clean up after protests is fighting for social justice. But as with the white supremacy question, Trump doesn't want to alienate people who support him, which QAnon adherents broadly do. His campaign has tried to walk a line between welcoming QAnon adherents and still maintaining some distance, not entirely successful. So once again he says something nice about them as he did in August. Now the exchange continued. Guthrie said, Republican Senator Ben Sasse said QAnon is nuts and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories. Trump, he may be right. Guthrie, why not say it's crazy and not true? Trump, he may be right. I just don't know about QAnon. Guthrie replied, but you do know. Trump said, I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know. 3 times. Now Guthrie tried to move on and Trump, angry, insisted they not. So Guthrie said, let me ask you another thing. Trump says, let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy, I denounce it. You start off with something else, let's go. Keep asking me these questions. So she said, okay, I have one more in this vein. And then Trump said, let me just tell you what I do hear about it, is they are very strongly against pedophilia, and I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree with it very strongly. And then Guthrie says, but there's not a satanic pedophile cult being run by Trump. I have no idea. I know nothing about it. And Guthrie carried on, you don't know that? No, I don't know that, and neither do you know that. So what they were saying was that the President of the United States asked if there was a satanic pedophile cult with roots in the US government, says he has no idea. Further, that a journalist for a major news network can't honestly claim to know whether this idea is legitimate. And Guthrie asked Trump about his retweet this week of a conspiracy theory that Biden orchestrated the killing of SEAL Team 6 to cover up the fake death of Osama bin Laden. Why would you send a lie like that to your followers? Guthrie asked him. Trump repeated again, I know nothing about it, but you retweeted it. Mr. Trump also couldn't answer whether he was tested on the day of the last debate, shortly before he tested positive for COVID-19. And the report says Mr. Trump, who claims to have one of the best memories, said he didn't know and couldn't remember. That was not a good exchange by Mr. Trump. Just not. So having bombed in his debate with the senile Biden, Trump now fails spectacularly in this pre-election broadcast. And the question is, are we seeing a pattern here? Not only did he come across badly, but he also deleted from the records his main voting group, the QAnons. Our message to QAnons: come and join us. You will learn a whole lot more than cryptic messages. Booms in information will be real, and we will not seduce you with fake dates or promises that come and go faster than the Trump cabinet members. The question is he stepping aside or down? Perhaps the next piece reveals more. For nearly 4 years, congressional Republicans have ducked and dodged an unending cascade of offensive statements and norm-shattering behaviour from President Trump, ignoring his caustic and scattershot Twitter feed and penchant for flouting party orthodoxy, and standing quietly by as he abandoned military allies, attacked American institutions and stirred up racist and nativist fears. And the shift less than 3 weeks before the election indicates that now that many Republicans have concluded that Mr. Trump is heading for a loss in November. Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska unleashed on Trump in a telephone town hall event with constituents on Wednesday, eviscerating the president's response to the coronavirus pandemic and accusing him of flirting with dictators and white supremacists and alienating voters so broadly that he might cause a Republican bloodbath in the Senate. Now, he was echoing a phrase from Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who warned of a Republican bloodbath or of Watergate proportions. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, one of the president's most vocal allies, predicted the president could very well lose the White House. Even the normally taciturn Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky and the majority leader, has been more outspoken than usual in recent days about his differences with the president and rejecting his calls to go big on a stimulus bill. In the backdrop to all of this, there was a regulatory rush this past few weeks by federal agencies to secure Trump's legacy, it said. Facing the prospect that President Trump could lose his re-election bid, his cabinet is scrambling to enact regulatory changes affecting millions of Americans in a blitz so rushed it may leave some changes vulnerable to court challenges. The effort is evident in a broad range of federal agencies and encompasses proposals like easing limits on how many hours some truckers can spend behind the wheel, giving the government more freedom to collect biometric data, and setting federal standards for when workers can be classified as independent contractors rather than employees. Interesting term, that. Still think Trump's going to win? Does he want to win? Is the key question, given his recent performances. This next piece tells you everything that's wrong with America and many other countries. And it's called the Transition Integrity Project. They wouldn't know integrity if it slapped them in the face. And is a US deep state action group of more than 100 current and former senior government and campaign leaders, academics, journalists, polling experts, and former federal and state government officials. Using colour revolution tactics, it intends to hinder Trump taking power after the 2020 election. Using projection, the project repeatedly states that the whole planning effort is to restrain or counter anti-democratic actions by the Trump administration, whilst itself planning similar practices that depart from traditional rule of law norm. Likewise, media outlets, organisers and campaigns need to develop strategies to both promote accurate reporting with trusted leaders and to interrupt and limit disinformation campaigns, which is seen as only coming from the other side. All part of the game, you see. Now, the initiative was initially convened by Rosa Brooks, a law professor at Georgetown and former Pentagon senior official, and Niles Gilman, a former vice chancellor of the University of California, Berkeley, and historian at Berggruen Institute. Now, she is married to a former lieutenant colonel from the Pentagon, who are also backing her. Brooks is born in and born to. Just saying. Yet again, the same dynamics come forward at such regular occurrences. Brooks, born in and born to. David Blum, another one. The New York Times columnist, and member of the initiative, envisages a group of sober people who are militant about America, who can see reality unblinkered by the lens of partisanship and who are finally compelled to organise, wanting to, quote, spur all stakeholders to action. The scenarios being charting out what it would take to stand up a multi-state communications arm to fight disinformation, a training programme for non-violent civil disobedience, and the underpinnings of what one official described as mass public unrest. Stakeholders is an interesting term, isn't it? Are they calling us all vampires? Now, these scenarios concentrate on what the Democrats see as their two biggest weaknesses, but also strengths: voting irregularities or voter fraud. And the scenarios noticeably mentions the Trump campaign condemning fraud in the mail-in ballot process, and the Democrats need to protect this process proceeding. The scenarios also consistently envisage state Democrat officials under different pretexts and select a different and pro-Biden batch of electors to the National Electoral College. Peaceful demonstrations and escalating violence, street demonstrations and how the government reacts to them is seen as crucial. So they're advocating for violence and unrest on the streets. Nice people. In the playing out of street violence, such terms such as false flag and agent provocateur were used by the other side, and as well understood in colour revolution methods. The game-winning strategy was to goad the other side into violence. During 2020, the group executed, nice wording again, a series of 4 crisis planning exercises known as games, stating that the winner may not, and we assess likely will not, be known on election night, as officials counting mail-in ballots. The group, with apparent lack of self-irony, concludes this period of uncertainty provides opportunities for an unscrupulous candidate to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the process and to set up an unprecedented assault on the outcome. This is like Operation Blackout and the COVID simulation games. Now, Game 1 being played out is an ambiguous vote without a clear winner. The game envisages Trump calling into question the validity of mail-in ballots and getting Republican officers in several states to immediately halt further vote counting. On the Democrat side, the Biden campaign declared that victory was imminent and called for every vote to be counted. The team mobilized a network of influential bipartisan elites, elected officials and retired military officers to speak to the press and denounce any effort to suppress counting the vote. The Biden campaign also called for peaceful rallies, echoing a call to count every vote. The Democrats also turned to state officials using an incident where a batch of presumed pro-Biden votes were destroyed by a rogue individual, which left Trump with a narrow electoral win. The governor of Michigan used this abnormality as justification to send a separate pro-Biden set of electors to DC. This is the simulation games they're playing out. Game 2, a clear Biden victory. In this scenario, Biden won outright in the Electoral College and also the popular vote. The Biden campaign team emphasized standing up a credible transition process. The Trump campaign sought to hinder this, but the federal government team confirmed that a number of civil servants would seek to enable it, regardless of directions from the White House. Game 3. Clear Trump Electoral College win. The third scenario posited a comfortable Electoral College victory for President Trump by 286 to 252, but also a significant popular vote win, 52 to 47, for the former Vice President Biden. The gameplay ended in a constitutional crisis characterized by 1. Political chaos, 2. Widespread threats of violence, a sporadic actual violence in the streets, a hostile, dangerous, highly partisan and frequently unconstrained information and media environment. The Biden campaign proposes a series of presumably immediately effective constitutional changes, including abolishing the Electoral College, changing the Supreme Court composition by retiring judges over 70, creating new states, changes which would give Biden the presidency. The game envisages the Biden campaign encouraging Western states, particularly California, but also Oregon and Washington, all the same states that are on fire because of Antifa and BLM, just saying, to secede from the Union unless congressional Republicans agreed to these structural reforms. Game 4. Narrow Biden win. The final scenario explored a narrow Biden win where he leads with less than 1% of the popular vote the day after the election and is predicted to win 278 electoral votes, concluding with an uneasy and combative but ultimately successful transition. Now, this scenario envisages Trump being escorted out of the White House on January the 20th, 2021 by the Secret Service while continuing to launch attacks against the legitimacy of the election. Yet again, these think tank psychopaths, with little regard to or for the people, playing boardroom simulation games to essentially be or chose the leader of a criminal network. But should the Justice Departments actually think of we the people for once? Here is something as a reminder of your own rules. Title 18 US Code 2385. Whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability or propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States or the government of any state, territory, district or possession thereof, or the government of any political subdivision therein by force or violence, or by the assassination of any officer of any such government, or whoever with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any such government, prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes, or publicly displays any written or printed matter advocating, advising, or teaching the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government in the United States by force or violence, or attempts to do so, or whoever organizes or helps or attempts to organize any society, group, or assembly of persons who teach, advocate, or encourage the overthrow or destruction of any such government by force or violence, or becomes or is a member of or affiliates with any such society, group, or assembly of persons knowing the purposes thereof, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by the United States or any department or agency thereof for the 5 years next following his or her conviction. That whole piece is how and why we have to build the People's Club for and by the people. A small legal challenge has turned into a precedent-setting case about whether someone in today's Britain can be prioritised or denied housing on the basis of their religion. The law isn't always right, and it's not just the people who can be taken hostage, it is said. But in a fairly disgraceful decision deemed legitimate by the UK's highest court, a single mother with 4 children was refused social housing because she wasn't a Jew. It's that simple. The charity Agudas Israel Housing Association, AIHA, interesting, owns 470 houses in the London borough of Hackney, and local authorities promised in October of 17 the next available home to the woman and her kids, 2 of whom are autistic. AIHA refused to hand over the keys to any of its 6 4-bedroom apartments or homes or unoccupied flats. Their argument was it makes offers only to members of the Jewish community. As Britain is a secular nation, the woman's legal team found this claim astonishing and argued it had the same sentiment as the "No Dogs, No Blacks, No Irish" signs that were once displayed in the UK pubs. Lord Sales stated that the charity's use of positive discrimination was lawful under the Equality Act 2010 in order to correct the disadvantage faced by the community. The issue apparently was not racism but discrimination on the grounds of religious observance. The court considered the widespread and increasing overt anti-Semitism in our society. Intolerance or hate speech of any form is unacceptable, but it's hard to believe the courts and public reaction would have been the same if this had been an Islam or a group of Pashtuns from the Iranian border region. Jewish affairs are treated differently. And what it was said, there is a kid's glove approach and they're deemed to be culturally valuable, while other communities are sometimes dismissed as interlopers. Now, AIHA's founder, Ita Simonson, speaking last year about the legal action, offered the view which non-Jewish person, honestly speaking, wants to live in the midst of a building full of Haredi men up with beards and chanting on a Friday night on all the children. Really? And this is what's going on. The top end of Britain is run by these same Hebrew Anunnaki psychopaths. They just seem to think everything and everyone belongs to them. In fact, he told us so in the Talmud. But those who consider themselves in the modern day as Semites are the most racist group of people upon this planet by some distance. Period. And we have to quit feeding their pity party tactics and wake up to what is really going on here. This group is backed by, supported and used by those who have hunted down the real oppressed on this planet, the whites, for thousands of years. But it's all people as well, just that group more than any other. And the last show on Tuesday revealed that fact a bit further, supported by various anecdotes in our From Russia with Love series. You can't have a house in England unless you are Jewish. Oh my. Something else that has arisen this week, and yes, I will get called out again for daring to ask a question or a few, but this has to be said and questioned based on her own words in recent shows. We are all about the truth, Kim and Tank stated, and I welcome that. But there are serious gaps between the narrative that rolls on week to week with little to no recourse, and debate when questions are asked. They are stifled or blocked. If they weren't, I would not have to do these pieces highlighting various discrepancies that are going on week after week. And please don't delude yourselves that it's only the Tiny Man and THI members thinking this, because it's just not. I have written 5 or 6 pieces for shows in the past 2 months about Life Force and never put one of those in the show, as we ended up with more important things to cover than one just group, who are playing childlike games of let's see how many times we can reference myself or THI without naming them. And this is supposed to be the people's answer to the mainstream media? Kim and Tank can continue to take veiled swipes at me and our show, but we have always answered questions when safe to do so. And so it's very disingenuous to talk of all-inclusive, and we can agree to disagree on things and should talk and settle differences like adults when your own actions are 100% to the contrary. Accountability and truth never fears investigations. And yet it is staggeringly awry with this group, and that is my main concern and contention, not the personalities. If truth is your goal and target, then please start answering the valid questions many people are asking and stop rolling over it like you have something to hide week after week. I want your show to work. But this unsecret society now has not mild concerns, but gaping chasms of concerns. If the truth is the primary goal here, and we can clear up some discrepancies, then Kim will not mind appearing on a question and answer show with me, and let's see if we can clear this mess up. and then go forward with real clarity and not the muddy waters it currently portrays. So there is your opportunity, Kim, to show the all-inclusive you stated, an opportunity to be in and of the truth, an opportunity to talk together like adults that you stated around the 14 or 15 minute mark in your recent show. By coming on a show and being what you have stated, based solely on the narrative, not the personalities involved. Now, Kim stated in recent podcasts about certain bank transfers. Firstly, to the Israel Bank, who are under investigation and have been charged by the DOJ. Secondly, the public's transfer money was yet again sent over to the Morgan Chase Bank in New York, who have also been investigated and charged by the DOJ for various infractions over time, including some recently. Thirdly, now Kim reveals she sent money to a Santander Bank in Mexico, who she stated have been corrupt for a while, and she was aware of it, and that bank are involved in child trafficking, and yet sent the trust money to the said bank and now states the money is lost. Questions have to be asked here of what the hell is going on over there. Kim is the guardian of what belongs to the people, and the people are entitled to ask relevant questions. Question 1 is, why is the trustee sending trust funds to seemingly banks that are all under investigation for fraud or recently charged with fraud? 2. How and why, with the quantum system, is money suddenly now being lost? It was always recoverable. What is the difference now? Are you no longer able to operate the quantum system? 3. Who or what is running the trustee these days? As each week now, more and more bizarre narratives are being spat out to an increasingly disbelieving public. 4. Where is the accountability, and why does their show repeatedly now contain excerpts of narratives I have written, not from past shows, but from future or impending shows? Oops. These are valid questions that require answering to the public they state to serve. But it was interesting that Kim is stating it needed 3 keys to get money out of the 5-Star Trust, and described a lock and key. Oh my, that has so many connotations to that. So what she is describing with the 3 keys is something I revealed to her along with the lock and key, is the one-on-one with the one, which I stated operated on more than one level. Kim had the 3 people keys required and chose to go with the one. The question remains as to why. Kim then described the sheer contempt of the underground dwellers has for the surface people, and yes, she is correct. She spoke of the contempt of them discussing how they just would eliminate the surface dwellers. But this is against the backdrop of how she has told us all she has wiped out the black nobility, all the top Rothschilds, all the top Black Sun, all the top bankers, and now all of the DUMBs, military underground bases, with millions of people in there, including hundreds of thousands of workers, as well as slaves. Should that be true, and I have reason to believe it is not, these are staggering claims that brings up several questions. 1. Who was involved in the discussion to delete all those people and other beings below ground? 2. Who carried out this attack? 3. Why wasn't the enforcement team she claims to have not sent in to rescue the people there first? 4. Does she realise that hundreds of thousands of people who work down there are oblivious to world councils, ETs below their feet, and just think they are working on an underground military base to hide from the Russians? Now, according to her, they're all gone. I'm sure their loved ones and partners are going to love that statement. 5. There is vast quantities of food and supplies in those bases, both of which we may well need in these coming struggling times. 6. The World Council are not all humans. And this is where her lack of knowledge comes in. They can trick our brains into thinking they're human when they are not. 7. Why is she not following the new galactic guideline of transmute people, not kill people? It works, and she herself has felt much benefit from that. 8. Kim and her team are resembling the continuation of the past loop covered in the 100 series. It didn't work then and will not work now. 9. Some of those beings have been here longer than us, and Kim's lack of knowledge of ET matters is not conducive to making these types of decisions for humanity or them. You have to remember, Kim sat with Marduk for years, oblivious to who or what he was. And that was why she went onto the internet to find out more details of people who knew, and eventually found me and Shane the Runer. Kim said something to me back in 2018. If I had listened to your show, if you were doing it between 2009 and 2012, I would have thought you were nuts talking about all these ETs. And now she's in a position that decides who lives and who dies with no learned knowledge, only partially remembered sound bites from me, in part Shane, and also Chloe. I hate to say it, but Chloe knew a vast amount more of the ET narrative than Kim ever has. And that's not a slight on Kim. It's okay to not know shit. But what's worse is when you act like you know it when you don't. That is the weakness. The strength is to admit you don't know something. But these are fairly serious oversights going on here. And it's not something I would ever have gone along with. And some people don't like or want to hear the narrative in our shows, because it's too deep into the core of truth is why. But it's all about the balance. Something not observed this past 6 months, it seems. And maybe that is the real reason why I was shunted out through zero fault of my own. Because much of my solutions, narratives and ideals are based not on emotional thinking, but overview thinking, this tends to lead to far less mistakes. This is serious stuff, and it goes way beyond just wiping people out. And some serious discord needs to be done here before both sides turn this planet into dust. Real leaders do not discount or disregard good people without cost to themselves. Something largely overlooked here, I feel. And unless Kim gets her act together with proper, balanced, knowledgeable people for each task, not lackeys and yes people, instead of this Marvel-style Neo character, we will all end up like those in the 100 series. And for her, the line in the show will be, "Your fight is over." As the world turns into chaos and the people divide grows wider, these are exceptional and dangerous times for us all. Forget elections, forget mass arrests, forget Comey, Mueller, Page, Bannon, etc. Forget Russian collusion, Ukrainian collusion, Chinese collusion. It's all a distraction. And let's focus. Forget Trump and his band of Israelites coming to save you. Save you from what? New boss, same as the old boss? Forget Q and its cryptic code messages. There are people suffering and dying, and what are they doing about it? What difference does it make if they make 1,000 or 100,000 of government and agency-based criminals, if hundreds of thousands of people die due to poverty, violence and fear created by the portal people? Forget the trustee and her promises of funds, favours, biomachines, student loans removed, deleting this, that and the other group. She tells us the problem is the banks, and yet sends our trust money to the very same banks. The problem isn't the banks per se, it is the inability to listen. Forget the others promoting RVs, GCR, Nasara, Jessara, San Germain, Hidalgo, Heritage, De Villiers trusts, birth certificate funds. Forget the militias, white hats, anonymous groups, 144,000 groups coming to save you. They aren't. Forget 2 weeks from Drake, tomorrow ad nauseum from Tank and cohorts, and Kim this coming Monday or Tuesday events. None of them ever happened. Forget mass arrests started by David Wilcock in 2002. We have waited 18 years for that, and it failed as well. They arrested Jeffrey Epstein, and what happened next? Nothing. Forget insert name of ET group coming to save their alleged brothers and sisters. They didn't. Forget the New Age, all flowery, love and light BS. Forget the spiritualist groups BS of enlightenment. Forget the Kumbaya singing of peace and love as well. The whole lot of it is pure distraction tactics. And if that wasn't the truth, this world would be all so much better now. It's not, and that is the pure facts and the truth. let's focus on what is real and really happening here. The loss of our jobs, the loss of our incomes, the loss of our ability to travel, the loss of social engagement, the loss of children going to school, the loss of touching each other, the loss of frequency combining, the loss of friends, family and neighbours, the loss of free speech, and the loss of our freedom. They have increased the range and availability to spy on us. They are sending out the control system puppets called the police to deliberately harass, intimidate, arrest us and in some cases kill us. They have increased the availability of technology solely designed to harm, harvest and control us. They have drastically reduced our food supply whilst increasing the prices of it. They have escalated poverty tenfold on all countries and peoples. They have increased our taxes while decreasing it for the rich. It was always said with taxes that the only thing left they haven't taxed yet is breathing. Well, they have now. It's called the mask. And that is now taxing our ability to breathe and live. They have harvested all of our businesses, jobs, patents and lifestyles, whilst enriching their wealth by nearly 40 trillion in under 6 months. They are enacting draconian laws upon us, blatant fascism, dictatorships and their Fourth Reich in America as they warned us of. They have turned the people against each other, turned ignorant people into thinking that they are medical experts, turned the medical experts who speak the truth into pariahs and conspiracy theorists. These are the real things to focus on. They wheeled out the manufactured protest groups and riots with BLM, Antifa and other agitators that have destroyed some of our communities. And what did the authorities do to stop it? Nothing. Did the media cover it in any detail or condemn it? No. Towns, villages, monuments, all destroyed to show the watchers how evil and juvenile we all are. Oh look, the stupid humans are burning their homes and businesses again. The authorities have spent the money amongst themselves and left the public money short. Bought us off with $1,200 inconvenience checks, of which most people never received, due to IRS failures, then the Postal Service, or banking issues, or so we were told. But it's funny, the Postal Service never failed to deliver ballots to vote for 2 people the public never asked for, isn't it? $1,200 payoff to shut up and tolerate outright fascism. 30.5 weeks of lockdown for $1,200, which equates to $39 a week for those fortunate enough to receive it. $39 fucking a week to tolerate fascism. That is the real focus. Not bogus bloody emails, corrupt DOJ agencies or Congress and fake mass arrests. Focus on what is real and happening to us, not criminals within our midst, because unless bold actions are taken soon, we will all end up in camps or body bags with them criminals anyway. The clowns and their so-called self-entitlement program are running a harvesting program, a giant Milgram experiment on us, MK Ultra on us, that is stripping us of everything before our eyes. While some are playing our show is better than yours. The portal people globally are spreading hatred, division and, more importantly, fear, and turning this planet into a giant adrenochrome centre. So they corralled us into our homes, that is 8 times more toxic than outside, according to their own EPA. They then push you towards the internet for their pro-pagan Dar purposes, until the people started seeing through the illusion of all their banal shit. They started to lose the narrative, and they know how damaging that is, as all their programs and programming begins to break down. So what happens next? YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Go Ogle and the fascist Hebrew Anunnaki ran Facebook decide to take their ball away and ban posts that go against community standards. Do they reveal what those standards are? Who are the community? No. In their game, there are no rules. Do as we say, even though we're never told what you can say or what you can do. Or we erase your pages, blogs, comments or videos. It's all very Talmudic, that is it not? Seven months on since this virus of magic abilities that can tell the time, measure distances, know the dates, that eliminates flu, heart disease, cancer and many other illnesses. It also carries an immunity for certain people, like politicians, like the police, like the National Guard, the portal people and presumably the military. Yeah, how many people stuck in their Hunger Game districts, all 13 of them, 13 districts, 13 colonies, 13 states, 13 tribes of Israel, 13 zodiacs, and yes, it is all connected. Have they asked why those people are immune from not only wearing masks, but from this magic virus? No. Do you really believe the politicians or so-called stars have gotten COVID? Look at Trump and his 3-day stage play of I am Jesus Christ returning from the dead virus. Do you really believe that theatre? He went to Bethesda Hospital, which just happens to be a pool in Jerusalem, where Jesus, which is Horus, miraculously healed a paralyzed man, we are told. Now the pool is stated to be a mikveh pool, which is a ritual pool for the purpose of ritual immersion in Judaism, to achieve ritual purity. Oh my. Day of Atonement for Trump. The word Bethesda means house of mercy, which makes a change from house of Israel, I suppose. And to complete the biblical-based prophecy, Bethesda is housed in the land of Mary, or the modern-day term, Maryland. Forget Biden. He is but a mere puppet amongst puppets. The real Punch and Judy puppet theatre show is Trump and Pelosi. That 13-point piece I did on a recent show and posted on the MeWe chat is unfolding before your eyes. And Trump, like the trustee at this point, appears impotent. Not important, impotent. The common theme is ego. Presenting yourself as the saviour program always ends in tears, whether at the top end of the scale or lower down amongst the masses. And when it goes wrong, and it always does, their heads in olden times ended up on the chopping block. Nowadays it ensures social media ridicule and abuse. The alt media is no different. Egos running rampant, people playing opportunistic games to elevate their own status despite not being able to do the job of the person they are replacing. All divide and conquer tactics that the so-called powers that be lap up and laugh hysterically in their secret boardrooms. Cassandra stated this. Is she wrong? My very letter to this man called the Ruiner will be a representation of the fact that you all cannot see truth when it's in front of you. And you will always choose the more comfortable free ride provided by leaders who are willing to be responsible for you. Before April, things were going really well. And we had the powers that were on the rack. They were being strangled along with their old system and ways. And since then, it's all gone to hell in a handbasket. Who or what made the difference? Why was that difference allowed to happen? And who facilitated it? And I'm sorry, Kim, but you have to take a fair chunk of the responsibility for this mess. You're the one who held or holds all the power. You're the one who holds all the life force energy known as the trust. And subsequently, you're the one who holds the purse strings. And you're the one who, based on what you said to Alan James, has given out $33.5 trillion, almost none of which has helped the people, and some accountability to we the people is required here. The focus is not one small group, either yours or THI. But the bigger picture here that is unfolding, that on current inputs seems to be largely overlooked in favour of status. But that status, like the people's, is being eroded before our eyes. And what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Infighting within your own group on an unprecedented scale and trying to cover it all up to save face. Really? To save face? All our faces are being stripped faster than a Hillary Clinton Hoomer Abedin video. Look around you. A disaster is unfolding on an unprecedented scale, whilst you play hide and seek with the truth that is protecting the self only, and subsequently service the self and not others. From that standpoint, we the people have always failed. The inability to share and care, the ability to play musical chairs with roles too few are capable of honouring. The ability to let ego get in the way of a more valid movement or community. The inability to listen out for and protect the few people brave enough to speak the truth. The inability to coalesce into a cohesive unit to fight for the collective. And the innate ability to destroy those few who do have your best interests at heart. And for what? Your own status or perception of it? There are tens of people on this planet running around stating they are the reincarnation of Jesus and Mary. And what are they doing about it? One is selling sunshine in the desert region while chasing the currency revaluation called the RV. Really? These people are taking the piss with their ego-based statuses, because not one is operating as the archetype of that role. Not one. And therein lies the problem. And this is what Cassandra the parent told us all again. And can we as a collective really question what she said? She said this: a few may act or feel differently, but the focus remains on the majority, not the few lonely villagers questioning and dreaming. The energy you possess is squandered, neglected, abused. And for 100 years we have fed your entertainment and you have devoured our offering, supporting the lies you told, ignoring the nuggets or the people of truth, and not once given us any indication you wish things to be different. Speak up if you have something to say. We are listening, but we will not allow you to waste a resource such as yourselves, and you cannot be allowed to destroy the planet like your creators designed you to. Can you really disagree with her? Some deep soul searching is required by us all, and I mean us all. Where are we going here? What are we really trying to achieve? Am I or are we giving all our best shot? What are we saving? Is it worth saving? Are we adults or are we children? The very first THI show I stated two things. I would tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And secondly, I said this show and its listeners must think and act different. THI has, by and large, thought and acted different, which is why we are attacked so much. We created a movement of people from varying backgrounds, diverse cultures and countries, differing religions and colours. We came up with innovative solutions to a range of topics, ranging from finance, food, health, law, teaching, building, governance, business, homes, villages, and many others, with a vision of all people are equal. We created groups in the various states of America, groups in other countries, encouraged all people to have a say, all people to speak up, all people to bring forward their ideas, and all people to be leaders. We created e-books for the people to learn some true history. We got people off long-term meds, pharmaceutical drugs, recreational drugs, alcohol, out of cults, out of religious dogma, out of witchcraft covens, out of fake spiritual groups, out of their programs and programming. We helped people with their paranormal issues, including abductions, astral rapes, visitations, bizarre experiences, and much more the general society considers not normal. We help people with their own emotional trauma, those who have been in the programs. We helped the monarch agents, and we helped and supported the trustee, the Eve, and the Earth Ambassador. We helped people address their shadow and inner work. We gave people a far greater understanding of what is life, love, being human, who and what is the control system, the roles of the puppets and who they are, and a history knowledge base that once fully distributed will change all of the people of this planet. We brought the truth, we brought balance, and we punctured fingers as much at us as the clowns, elites, and the cabal. We brought people together, showed them how to learn again of how to work together as a unit, not as individuals. We taught people to be less angry, violent, antagonistic, revengeful, and hateful. We taught people to care more, share more, love more, and support more. And we taught people to think more. We taught people empowerment and how to step into their own sovereignty. We taught people how to protect themselves from attacks, repair your PSI fields, protect your energies. We fixed people's health conditions and removed entity attachments. We unblocked people's throat chakras. We promoted other groups, peoples, and their ideas. We taught people soul development and removed several out of the astral level and onto the mental planes. We came up with a plethora of all-inclusive solutions of how to fix this world and its people. We gave people their own power back, their life back, their purpose back, and themselves back. I did all that in 4.25 years of working for the Trust and 4.5 years of running the People's Club for no pay. Did I complain of that? Nope. Because I didn't do it for a return, financial or otherwise. I did it for we the people. And so did many others. I and we did all that in THI, and no one can take that away from us. No one. But what did we and I get in return? Has all been laid to bear. People like the Bubbas, Cosmic Voice Crew, Drake, Madeline Neatane, Chloe Kirker, Shane Bales, Randy Morgans, Lily Earthling, Jimmy Brent, Alan James and his crew whose names are not fully determined yet, Stephen Rowe, better known as Tank and his motley crew, Ava Cowan, and lastly the trustee herself, Kim Go-Guen, trashing it and us, based not on truth but lies. Is that how humanity is going to survive or thrive? Well, is it? If you don't like your name on that list, my question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to fix or correct it? Have you looked within yourself as to why you would attack a group and person who built and did all that for and by the people? Well, have you? We built for the first time in history a whole community and support structure that is solely based on, for and by the people. And the above mentioned names chose to divide and conquer it due to insecurity, overinflated egos and the sense of the self and not the all. How has that worked out for you all? How is dividing and conquering we the people for your own personal ends going to fix or save this planet or its people? How, having done all of the above, many, many good things, that has improved the lives of so many people around the world, is it okay to trash that person and that group? Why would you do that to the very few who are willing to stand up and risk their lives for the benefit of the all? The answers, as always, are within. They always were. You may see me and THI as the boogeyman in the mirror, but that is the illusion game you have played with yourselves your whole lives. I am open to constructive criticism the same as everyone else, providing it has a basis of truth or reality. And yet these same people who accuse me and us won't meet face to face or call to call. Why is that? Am I scary? The tiny scary man. Ooh. Or is it just because their claims are not based in reality and can't face the truth? Do I get all things or situations right? Absolutely not. Yet why am I held to such high levels of accountability that is not exhibited to, for, or by others? That is the question, but you are the answer. Illusion or reality, lies or truth, together or divided, thriving or conquered, organic or cybernetic, mental planes or astral, higher vibration or lower vibration, balance or ego, side by side or hierarchy, harvesting ideas or sharing them, creativity or destruction, evolution or devolution, life or death, chaos or order, sanity or insanity, duality or triality, one-on-one with the one, or 1-0-0, which is exactly what is in the opening of the 100 series, is it not? 2 zeros crashing together. Symbology is and was their downfall. Real source or fake gods and goddesses, one Neo or millions of Neos. Personally, I don't care whether you don't like me, as it drives me onto greater heights and so is actually beneficial to me, but not yourselves. One person described me this week as wounded. You look in the wrong direction, because pictures can tell 1,000 words. Look at what my vision brought forward and the THI listeners and members delivered on a daily basis. Vast improvements, and yet you people think I and we are some way bad, evil, or the devil incarnate. Have you ever seen any dark being create that much good and beneficial for we the people before? Well, have you? As you all know, we welcome ideas here, so please enlighten us as to when and how a so-called dark being did what we have done with THI. And let's get real here. You may trash us all you like, yet funny enough you find it worthy enough to take all our ideas, proposals and solutions for your own ends. Take a bow, Alan James and Tank, and to a degree Kim as well. The reality is I'm just the mirror of your own internal failures and your subsequent external projections. You may all think and believe it's me, but the answer you already know is yourselves. I have just become the convenient battering ram and target for your own shortcomings. You can carry on deluding yourselves and contribute to we the people's downfall, or show some gumption and fix you and it. Humanity is in an almighty mess, and no amount of delusion or New Age rhetoric will change that fact. We have to act now and fast. We have common goals, and yet some want to use it to enhance and promote the self. It has never worked in the past and will never work in the future. Dividing and conquering is operating for and by the cabal, not we the people, no matter how much you kid yourselves otherwise. My door remains open for you all to walk through again and join a group of hope, passion, drive, togetherness and community spirit rarely seen anywhere outside of this group, and that is a fact. Your past I'm less interested in. Only your ability to correct wrongs within you and towards us. Your future and forward path determines your development, not mine or ours. Humanity is in a mess and at a crossroads that requires focus not on and of the self, but amongst us all. We will never achieve anything divided. A look back in history tells you that. Billions of people killed following a psychotic plan of controlling psychopaths and gods has got us nowhere. Why did that happen? Because we never built an alternative until now of for and by the people. That is our past legacy of disunity and non-harmonic, and some people want to replicate that again just to look important. Wrong thinking. You do important work, not look important. Are we creating shared clockwise life force, or allowing them to take our life by force? And it all comes down to choices in life. And those named above have some serious considerations to do in and of themselves. Are we acting in the right way? And are we working for humanity or just ourselves only? What is your choice? Carry on dividing and contributing towards the end of humanity as we know it, or grow a set and work with us for a brighter future for us all. Thank you.